Well, it is a little bit before noon, and that must mean it's time for the virtual speaker series presented by the Penn State Alumni Association. Welcome everybody into the Zoom room here. I see that it's filling up as usual. We invite you to share who you are and where you're from in the chat box at the bottom of your Zoom video window. We have a great presentation lined up for you today. Amy Lorek is with us. She's the Assistant Research Professor with the Center for Healthy Aging here at Penn State. Again, welcome to the Penn State Alumni Association's virtual speaker series. Again, if you're just joining us, let us know who you are and where you're zooming in from. Carol Paoletti is on the call this morning. Good to see you. I see Lorraine from Ocean City, Maryland, and Robin Tate from right here in State College, along with Rosalie from Penn State Schuylkill. Bernice joining us from Mazatlan, Mexico again. Good to see you, Bernice. Elaine Barish from Penn State Berks, Jim Forrest from Franklin, Massachusetts. Amy Dining from King of Prussia, Becky from Carlisle. It's good to see everybody here on the virtual speaker series. We have a great session lined up for you today with Amy Lorek. She is an assistant research professor with the Center for Healthy Aging here at Penn State, and she has a great presentation lined up for you today on a snowy day here in Happy Valley, Pennsylvania. Woke up again. Seems like the third day out of the last week with the dusting of snow here on the ground in Happy Valley. So we will be getting started in just a minute. Thanks for joining us. Where else would you rather be than a Zoom full of Penn Staters? I'm Paul Clifford, CEO of the Penn State Alumni Association, and I'd like to welcome everybody to today's virtual speaker session, which is being recorded. Live closed captions are available for this event. You can access them by clicking the closed caption button at the bottom of your Zoom video window and then clicking show subtitle. You can also customize your caption view by clicking the stream to test link posted in the chat. We are live streaming today's presentation, and the live stream has been made possible through the gracious support of a donor and the Fund for Access, Ideas, and Audacious Goals. Today's presentation will be archived and available on our website after the event. This afternoon, we welcome Amy Lorek, an assistant research professor at the Center for Healthy Aging. Professor Lorek also serves as the Interim Director for the Women's Leadership Initiative in the College of Health and Human Development here at Penn State. Our workforce and communities are becoming more age diverse than ever before. In this talk, Amy Lorek, Assistant Research Professor, will review the impact of these changes and identify the skills needed to effectively work and live in multi-generational settings. She will discuss how our views on aging influence health outcomes and ultimately affect how we interact with others. Lorek will also discuss the center's efforts to connect people through human experiences, with a particular focus on the process of becoming the person we want to be and helping others to do the same. Professor Lorek received her master's degree in museum studies from Cooperstown Graduate Program and a PhD in leisure behavior from Indiana University. Lorek has broad practical experience with workplace, academic, and non-traditional teaching and learning contexts. She specializes in creating educational experiences and programs for intergenerational exchange, healthy aging, and leadership development. It's my pleasure to welcome Professor Lorek to the virtual speaker series. Amy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for inviting me to be with you here today. I am thrilled to see all of the different names pop up on my chat screen. And so thank you all for joining in this program, and I'll look forward to the questions as you have them. I'm going to begin by sharing my screen. So I would like to spend a few moments talking with you today about how we can be connecting our generations in the different contexts that we find ourselves in. And that's the title. What I'd like to spend time on is a couple of ideas about how what's informing this multi-generational experience and how that's playing out in our workplace, how it's playing out in our communities, but also how we might navigate for this changing environment. And if we have a couple extra minutes, I'd like to show you a video at the end. So I'm hoping we'll get there. So a couple of key ideas. You maybe have seen this in the media or read about some of the work at our center, but the idea here is we are living longer and healthier lives, and that's due to things like having access to medications, to having clean water and clean environment. But simultaneously with that, our birth rates are flattening. But what that means is overall, we're living healthier and longer lives. And what does that mean? It means that the notion of what is student and who is a student needs to be rethought. And the whole higher education field has been talking about this shift in demographics, and changing ideas mean that we have to rethink how we're teaching, how we're learning, and who is to be a student. And of course, technology, and we're grateful for the technology during this time, which allows us to stay connected and stay doing the work that we would like to be doing. And so technology creates new jobs, but that also means that we have to change to learn that technology. And what that means is that we will always be learners. There won't be a time when we stop learning. And that's changing the notions of higher ed. It's changing the notions of how we go about our learning experience. What it also means is that a qualified workforce will continue to be a need. And as our flattening birth rates occur, that means that our supply of people to do the work is likely not to be able to keep up. So how will we address this change? Well, we're going to need to think about reskilling and upskilling our experiences, and that means we will need access to education throughout our lives. This is what our workforce may look like already. And you may recognize this, or it may be a unique experience, but as our Generation Z is arriving in the workplace, it's shifting things, but we are also finding that the traditionalists are not necessarily leaving the workforce. And what that means is we now have 5 generations working together side by side to get things done, but we don't necessarily have the ability to work this way because we haven't needed the skills to work across generations before. So I'm interested in finding out who is here today. So if you wouldn't mind completing the poll so that we can see who's in the audience today. I'm going to answer that question myself, but I'm hoping we'll get to see who is out there. Tell us about, this is an anonymous survey, so you don't have to share your age, but if you would tell us what generation you fall into, that would be helpful. And when the results are in, I'd love to be able to see them. You maybe have seen different names for each of the generations, and I've tried to be as inclusive as possible. We have a group of demographers that like the alphabet, and so we have the X, Y, and Z generations, and sometimes those generations get renamed, and you'll see that that's what the millennials are being redubbed. But the labels for these generations are really just to try and make sense of a shared life experience. So a time when you might have been coming up where the music was familiar to a group of people, or the world events might be familiar. And all these are our demographer labels, and that will help us to understand how each of the generations experience the world a little bit differently and a little bit uniquely. And so if there are results to share, I'd love to see them. Okay. So this is very interesting. We do have a Gen Zer. I'm a little surprised, but thanks to all of you for completing the survey. And as you see, this actually might be slightly different than our workforce because, let's see, I've got a chart for who's at work together right now. And this is a projection for 2025. We're not quite there yet, but you see that our Gen Zers are the ones who are currently in school or just out of school. And we will see Gen Zers arriving in the university setting over the next 18 years or so. So they're still being born. And more recently, there has been some updates on to how these numbers, the millions, might compare to each other. And what we're learning is that the Gen Zers will be very similar cohort to the millennials in terms of numbers. But this is who is projected to be in the workforce in 2025, which is not that far from now. And what you might be seeing is that our traditionalists are not exiting. And what we're finding is that because we're healthier, because we're living longer lives, retirement is being reconsidered. And what retirement looks like is changing dramatically. It might include staying in the workforce. It might be reinventing yourself in a new and different way, but it probably no longer means a shuffleboard or bingo or a lot of golf. It probably includes a blend of those things, the things you've always been doing and the things you might want to do or have put off doing. But what we do know is our new generation of retirees, our baby boomers, are doing it differently. And they're doing it like no other generation before. And that is something we'll need to learn about. So trends in learning. What are we learning? That one-time formal education is probably not going to be adequate. We will have to be learners throughout our life. We're also learning that because of the internet, specific content is readily available. And so why should I go to school and learn something that I could look up on the internet? Well, we're needing to shift what we're teaching and how we're teaching it, and that critical thinking skills are now most important in terms of how to evaluate information coming at us and how to make judgments about that information. We're also learning that when people have experiences that challenge them, they grow intellectually. And when people have diverse interactions in their personal lives or alongside, and in the case of a university, co-curricular, the things that they're doing in addition to taking classes, that this assists with civic development, but also a recognition about shared humanity across differences. This is better for some than others. But because of our pandemic and because things are vastly different now than we ever understood about the world, it's to be continued. So that means we also are seeing trends in working. So the value of a college degree is increasing, but there is increasing accountability that's demanded for why we should spend the kind of money we do and the kind of time, frankly. So that means that it's especially important to generate value and to be able to articulate that. We have more generations than ever before working together, but that has also meant that there is an increasing gap in how and what we communicate and how we understand each other. We are also understanding that our communication skills need to be more versatile. We have often accounted for working with our peers, and there is often a shorthand way of referring to things, but because we are working with different kinds of learners and different kinds of people, we are needing to sharpen those skills and to try different strategies with different people. But this means not just in person, it also means platform skills. And this is something that we are learning very fast right now. We're also seeing trends in how we're living. Our healthier conditions mean that we're living longer, and for some that means maybe working longer, and that means staying in the workplace or shifting and doing something perhaps different, so a change of career to explore something that maybe was put off. I've done some work with the National Park Service new employee program, and my observation there was there were a lot of retirees who were wanting to be in the Park Service because it was something they always wanted to do. And this is happening across the board, that retirement is maybe just a milestone to shifting gears. Healthy living is relevant at every age because we have also learned from research that it has long-term implications. So the sooner you start having a healthy lifestyle, the better healthy living and longer healthy living you'll have available to you. We've also learned from the work of Rebecca Levy at Yale School of Public Health that our negative ideas of aging have long-term consequences. They have consequences for our personal health, but they also have consequences for our interactions with others. And it's one of the few things left, one of the few isms left, but ageism and our attitudes about aging make a difference in how we experience ourselves and others. And if you just think a little bit about the messages coming at you from the media and other sources about aging, you'll maybe even recognize that an age defy or change of attitude around aging, these are messages coming at us from the media about thinking about our own aging and that we need to defy it. And if we want to think more positively about aging, we'll have to challenge those ideas. So here's a recent poll done by the University of Michigan about the experience of ageism. And these statistics tell us that it is pervasive. It is around us, but it's in our interactions, and it's also within us. So the beliefs that we have about aging play out. And Rebecca Levy has sort of examined how that internalized ageism plays out in our health. So I want to show you the positive side too, that positive beliefs about aging turns out can really help us in how we experience our daily lives. It can also make our interactions with others more positive, and that our beliefs about life and the progression of life can be really fulfilling. And this is sort of one of the paradoxes of aging, that as a younger person, we might think that aging is difficult or something to avoid. But the reality is our older adults are teaching us that life is pretty good as an older adult. And this is something I am certainly learning in my classroom, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. So what are the skills we need? Well, we need critical thinking skills because there is all sorts of information to be parsing through, but we also need to be willing to learn all the time. And it can be helpful if we are able to adapt our communication strategies to work with others. And that includes taking perspective, and considering how others might experience the world, but you also might invite a perspective that by having a conversation with someone that might be different from your own, and being open to considering that. And the way that we might do that effectively is by working on teams with others, especially teams of people who are different from each other. So how should we be teaching and learning those skills? Well, we've been trying to do some of that work in the undergraduate experience. I teach in human development and family studies in that department, and we have several intergenerational classes that offer that opportunity to students. But these are also experiences that can be had in other ways. It can be done in the workplace, or it can be done in communities, or it can be a co-curricular experience of offering mentoring experiences where older and younger people are paired together to learn from each other and about each other. We also can be setting up experiences so that we are intentional about how we're pairing people, or what it is that we want to be learning from each other or with each other. We also want to pair being self-aware with learning, so that we understand our own assumptions, our own perspective on life, and that is something that can be it can influence our interactions with others. But mostly we need to just keep practicing, because the only way we get good at things, of course, is by practicing. And we've been working on some of this by, we received a grant through the provost office under the Transforming Education. We've also been working with the Student Engagement Network to help faculty figure out how to integrate people of a variety of ages into more class projects or classrooms. We're also working with the Center for Performing Arts. They have a grant called the Reflection Project, and we are interested in not just the science of aging, but the art of aging, how this is understood in our bodies and through the arts. And so we are aiming to understand how we can learn from each other, how we can teach each other in a variety of ways. You also may have recognized that the Penn State won let's see if I can get it right. One Penn State 2025 has identified learning throughout our lives as a very important principle and thing that we can be working on. And so there is more to come from Penn State about what this means and what that looks like. So we've gotten to a point where I'd like to share with you a video. So I'm going to do a new share. And I will do my best to make it as loud as I can, but be aware it is a little bit soft. So you may have to strain a little to hear it.
The description of the class says that you're gonna occasionally meet with community members at State College, and so when I walked in on the first day, I was like,
I thought I was in the wrong place, and then
So was
the
I.
first day I was like, what is happening?
But then by the second class, everybody's talking and chattering. I mean, it's hard to hear, there's so much noise.
It's louder every week because everybody's made connections. They're forming relationships.
You get to learn about real life scenarios and real life experiences, and you get to reflect on your own life while listening to others reflect on theirs.
I wish I would have had that course when I was in my 20s and 30s. Not that it would have changed anything, but it would have prepared me for that. It was going to get better. Life was going to get better because those years were rough.
One of my favorite memories is going to play tennis with one of the community members. We went out and played tennis with 3 other students, and we were not that great.
See what I mean?
Yes.
Okay, so you want to stand here and you...
But he was an expert, so he kind of taught us his tennis ways, and I thought that was definitely one of the strongest memories I'll take away from this class.
Stay back. It's easier to charge the ball than it is to back up. Yeah, so...
That was awesome. That's good.
Yeah. It was a great game.
Woo!
Intergenerational relationships with college-age students is important. You get a different perspective on the world through their lens, and they get a different perspective of the world through your lens. And somewhere in the middle is the world. And if you just want to be daring and open yourself up to being vulnerable in that way to share with them, you will learn so much about yourself as well as them.
The people who I socialize with a lot of times are younger people because I'm used to younger people. That's why I take college courses. I feel very much at home there because, and quite frankly, I'm not real good on names, but some of the students come up to me and start talking to me. I can't remember what their names are, but they talk to me like they're coming up to their father or something like that, you know? And it's not, that wall isn't there. And so many people, they have a wall between them and younger people, and the younger people, unfortunately, younger people have that wall too. What do I get out of it? I'm here, I'll have a lot of fun.
I think it's like the no judgments. You can speak your mind, get opinions on your like own life, and not feel like you have to be judged.
I'm not the most outgoing person, but coming into this class, people were so nice and so willing to talk to you and so willing to introduce themselves and get to know you that like the class isn't focused on going to lecture and then having to take an exam on the material that you're learning. Like these are just conversations that you're taking with you for life.
I think more people should do this because I think the world would be a better place if we all got out of our silos.
No matter your age, you have something to teach and something to learn. Intergenerational experiences are opportunities to exchange perspectives and life expertise.
All right, welcome back. I'm gonna scoot past my next slide. Okay, so we've arrived at the point at which I'm going to challenge you. So I've got some things that I recommend, some things that we can be doing right now to learn and teach each other, because there are 5 generations of us, maybe even 6 in our communities. And the first is, of course, being willing to engage and connect with others, especially people of a different life experience than you. I encourage you to be open to learning from others and open to teaching others, but also to help others connect. You might take a look at your own attitudes about aging and how that's helping you or holding you back. I also invite you to have a conversation and to be curious about a new perspective. So these are things we can all be doing, but what can we be doing at work? Well, we can be working on eliminating stereotypes linked with any generation. We are needing to learn from each other, and the best way to do that is to leave our assumptions aside and to inquire. How do people come to us as individuals and as unique people that have something to offer us?
Amy, not to
Yes.
interrupt you, but I don't think people are seeing your PowerPoint.
Okay.
Reshare it.
I'll reshare it. Thank you.
Yes.
Here we go. Can you see it now?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. I'll just quickly go back to the summary. What we can all be doing now, these are the items that I spoke of, and then what we can be doing at work is along a similar vein. But we need to be very active in working on our stereotypes, but also changing up how we're communicating and using a different style and adapting as we go. And these are things that are true for any age in order to work with people who have a different experience than we do. But I also think that our generationally diverse work teams can leverage learning, but also experiences. And then we can also be sharing our expertise and our skills so that we are all able to be learners and teachers. So with that, I will wrap things up. This is my contact information. I also have some recommendations for checking out some reading, and I can post those in the chat, but I'm going to stop sharing because I can see that there are some questions in the box.
Absolutely. Amy, thank you so much for that presentation. We do have a number of questions coming in, but let's start with kind of the environment that we're living in and COVID-19.
Yeah.
How has the world of COVID-19 impacted generational views on the virtual work environments and expectations for more guidance when working from home?
I think what we are learning is that the things that were happening before working from home, there were a lot of assumptions about people being able to develop the skills or people being able to access the technology in order to do work from home. I think we've all learned a little bit more about that. One of the things that I'm hearing in my circles in my world is that we are all expected to learn and to figure it out. I think there are some people who are opting out and just waiting for this to pass. I think others have said, well, if I'm going to connect, I'm going to have to learn it. What my observation in the classroom has been is that people are trying to be patient with that learning process. I think it helps us all reduce our stress when there is patience on the other side. We are also finding out that by working from home and by working in remote platforms and using technology is that it's actually facilitated more people joining the workforce or being able to contribute in ways that we hadn't imagined before.
You know, one of the things that I noticed early on in the pandemic was how different generations of people were reacting to the pandemic, right? And it was almost, and maybe this isn't necessarily workplace related, but I heard a lot of folks who are my age and in their mid 40s talking about their parents who are in their mid 60s not taking it seriously, right? And taking a different attitude towards the pandemic and talking about the reversal of roles, right? Actually, the child having the parent on, no, you need to stay in, you need to take this seriously. Is that something that that you found as you studied the interaction between generations? Is some of that that role reversal?
Well, some, and I certainly heard some of those same things that you just described. I think I see it from one generation, the Gen Zers who are in my classrooms, because these are the students I'm primarily interacting with. And they were, I think, really impressed with the generations, the boomers and the traditionalists who are willing to come to the classroom and who are willing to participate. So you saw in the video how much the older adults really engage and also value that interaction. Well, they took that to the Zoom platform, and this is how we did classes. I think it is a personal choice that people were making about whether or not to take the pandemic seriously. But I think for the most part, my experience was that they were interested in respecting what the other was choosing. So if the student wasn't wanting that interaction, the older adults said, fine, I'll be on Zoom with you. And I think everyone prefers in person. But the willingness to respect the choice of the other was something I saw play out again and again.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Shelley has a question. Do you think that the ability or inability to navigate technology creates barriers between generations and can inhibit advancement?
I think it can, but it doesn't have to. And I think one of the really amazing things about this experience is that there may have been many older adults not that interested in technology, or felt that they didn't have to learn it because they didn't have it as their work experience and they didn't think that they needed to learn it. But that's really the oldest of the generations. I think the boomers are very technologically savvy.
Right.
They were prime work age when we had computers coming into the work experience. So I think that what we may be talking about is the traditionalists, the oldest generation. And I saw them say, okay, you called my bluff. I'm gonna have to learn this if I want to connect with others. And so I think at least I have seen more and more willingness to engage. It's certainly not preferred though.
Right, absolutely. Amy has a question, or more of a statement, that this topic ties into knowledge management in an organization and not losing knowledge and experience when people retire.
For sure. And I think that that two-way mentoring can be very helpful in that scenario. I think it is something that companies, organizations need to be thinking about, because the younger generations just simply don't have the years in to have that experience and knowledge, and the older group does, but they may not have the versatility of the communication skills that the younger generation might be able to offer. So there is a mentoring opportunity there to share expertise. It's a different kind of expertise, but it is an exchange. And that is why I always try to position intergenerational experiences as teaching and learning, that there is an exchange that happens where you're probably both a learner and a teacher. And how can we develop more experiences that leverage that?
So Pete brings up an interesting question here, and it's something that I've actually thought about, but his question is, do you get a sense that generational labeling has lost notoriety in the 2000s or 2010s, and now almost 2020s, become so affected by the internet and the definition of scope or difficult to pinpoint? I remember kind of growing up and going through school, it was almost like a commonly accepted definition that a generation was 30 years long.
Yeah.
But now our most recent generation seems as if it's almost a half-life of that. It's almost 10 or 15 years per generation. What are your thoughts on how we label generations now?
So it's a challenging subject, because it's really the demographers, the people who are trying to study how people are experiencing the world, that are dividing us and creating these labels. And it's really, the labels aren't meant to be stereotyping. They're meant to try and help facilitate understanding. There are certain rules that they'll follow for reasons why it's a shorter or longer period of time. I think the Gen Zers are around 20 years. So it varies, and the rules that the demographers have, I'm not sure of how they make those decisions. I suspect I could look it up though.
Yeah, well, and look, I think a lot of it is influenced now by the marketing landscape, right? Marketers develop these generations because they want to be able to sell you more of what they're selling, right? And so to get the message that finely tuned, I think that's why they get more specific on defining more of cohorts than they are generations.
That's true. And so it is really how you use that information, right? So if you're trying to sell me something, I understand why that might be a tool to do so. And that's why the sort of advice to try and let go of stereotypes and assumptions and let go of the labels, because people have different life experiences, and recognizing difference can be used to leverage connection, because people are, working together so we're not duplicates of each other. What do we uniquely offer to the work environment that we can learn and leverage as an asset?
It's interesting. You mentioned your students and that they are Gen Z. And I know I live with some Gen Zers who are setting up meetings and communicating on their phones, right? And it's text, it's Snapchat. And then they go into a work environment where their colleagues aren't going to give them their cell phone number because they're not going to text, right? Especially maybe some older generations. They're not going to be on Snapchat. And so Jim has a question here. You mentioned a few times the need for changing communication styles. Can you provide some examples of that in the workplace?
I think, one of the things that I encourage the students and the community members in my classroom to do is talk about preferred communication styles. So you just described texting. So I might tell you that I really don't text because I think of that as a shorthand to my friends. And so I'm not going to give you my phone number and text a work thing, but I'd be willing to do Slack instant messaging, right? And so it's about talking about how we prefer to communicate and also the beliefs that we have about it. To also understanding, I don't want to be working 24/7 and I want to be able to turn that on and off. And so here's how I do that. So it's in part helping the other understand how best I like to work, and then coming to an agreement on the way to do that. So I referenced Slack. Other messaging systems are being used right now. I think you can even message in Zoom because they're expanding their platform. But these are, I'm a Gen Xer, and I might write you an email or give you a call over sending you a text. And so and that's because that's what I would prefer, right? But if I haven't talked to you about that, then you might try to communicate with me differently. The other is I might like to walk down the hall and have a conversation with you. And now we've agreed on something, but if you're of a generation or a person who prefers an email or a text, otherwise it's not real. So this happened to me recently. Like we talked about, I thought it was a done arrangement. And then the comment back to me was, but you never sent me an email about that. But we talked about it. So this is the communications, right? And how we're communicating. So not just what, but how. The other sort of thing that I just sort of hinted at was I might be using language and vocabulary that make no sense to you. Right. And I might not even recognize that I'm doing it. So I need you to tell me, I don't know what you're talking about, or can you use other words to help me understand? And then my willingness to reach into my vocabulary to find other ways to talk about the same thing, but coming at it from a different way. So that I'm not using the jargon, I'm not using the language shorthand that I use with my friends, but I'm using other words to say the same message. And I think that's what I meant by versatility. So not just platforms, but also the ways that I'm speaking of things so that I am able to not just say the same thing over and over and repeat myself, but I find a new set of words to say the same message.
So interesting question here. I know your work is around multi-generational workplaces, but we have seen that the family living situations around the country, certainly around the world, have become multi-generational with newborns and parents and then grandparents that also live in the same household. Jamie wants to know if you have any resources for multi-generational families living together.
So there are resources out there through Generations United. That's a national organization. But I also think that the Penn State Extension has some resources for families. And so I think that those might be places I'd start to look. Generations United is a website, but also an organization, and they have a resource section, but also the Penn State Extension at Penn State has some resources. And there are not just pages of programs, but also places listed as other references that you can go to.
Question just came in. What's the point of making friends sign up for Slack, Facebook, etc., in lieu of text, email, and calling?
There's none. But I would say that if your workplace uses Slack,
right,
that's the alternative. And so that's a shared platform. Penn State is right now using Teams, Microsoft Teams, and it's the same idea. It's a way of organizing work and tasks and assignments and teams, but it's also a way of communicating. And so the Slack isn't necessarily what you might use with a coworker, or it's what you'd use with a coworker and not necessarily a friend group.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a virtual way of keeping work conversations at work, right?
That's right.
And in a system that essentially stores it, where all the people in the workspace have access to it.
And it's also reduces the reality of having to share personal phone numbers if you don't want to share that. And so these common platforms then are a place to centralize, but also limit how much information you're sharing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think different generations have different perspectives on privacy and what they're willing to share as well. So that's probably another area where people have to kind of check their comfort levels.
Yes, and I found that I've had to get more comfortable with some things, but I sort of held fast to some other rules. Like I don't like to text with students. I just don't do that. But I've had to find a way to communicate with them because that is often what they prefer to do. So how can we find common ground in a way that respects our preferences?
So we are all at some point on this aging continuum, right? Is your research, or are there tips that you have for people to prepare for that next stage, right? The question came in, how can seniors prepare for the dramatic changes in their lifestyle that will affect mental and physical health, their happiness, their general well-being?
Well, the thing that I have found to be common thread among all the research I've been reading about, but also what we're experiencing right now, is that if physical activity were a pill, we would all take it. In terms of our mental health, in terms of our physical health, just moving our bodies can be a tremendous asset. And so whatever that means for you, it can make a difference. I think the goal is, of course, more healthy years, fewer sick years, because chronic disease is something that tends to be a common and shared experience, but it doesn't have to come as early as it does. And physical activity, healthy nutrition, these are all things that we can be doing for ourselves. A lifestyle that is healthy can work wonders for the health years that you have ahead of you.
Well, Amy, we want to thank you for joining us today and for sharing your presentation. That's all the time that we have, but thank you for joining us on the virtual speaker session today.
Thank you. And I'm going to post some information in the chat just in case people want to look at it.
Absolutely. And as a reminder, we'll be hosting additional speaker sessions in the coming weeks and months. And this programming is in addition to a wide array of online networking events and career programs that are held throughout the year. You can find a full listing of all these programs on our website at alumni.psu.edu/events. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Professor Lorek, and we're so grateful for all you do for the university, for the glory, and for the future. We are
Penn State.